The origin of innovative weather came about through a process of my own thinking, which was the idea that students were really interested in operational forecasting. And I did an undergraduate degree at McGill University, which is primarily a physics degree. It wasn't very much meteorology involved. And ironically, when I was a graduate student at MIT, that's when I first saw real applications of meteorology to forecasting. And so I learned a lot from that experience, and it was basically forecast contests and things like that. Later on, when I did work with a private company, my first year and a half was entirely operational weather forecasting, so I had that experience. Later on, I did a postdoc at SUNY Albany, and they also had a forecast contest. So I was very aware of the difference between just sort of like a game kind of situation and actual forecasting. Even though I've never been employed by the Weather Service as a forecaster, it's very clear there's a difference. And I thought this would be a really good experience somehow for students to have, but it just kind of lay there in the back of my mind. Even though universities are focused on student success, they really, a research university has its primary emphasis on research productivity. And when you're a new faculty member, that's what you have to do, otherwise you won't keep your job. And so I had to sort of put that on the back burner. But once I had tenure, I was able to start thinking about that some more. And as it happened, our first operations director, Mike Westendorf, was transitioning through one of his jobs that he had, and we'd been sort of spitballing ideas about how to do this. And so we came up with a plan, and I call it the half-baked plan, because I presented it to our then Dean of Letters and Science, and he said, "That's a great idea, we should be doing more of this kind of thing at the university. Now how are you going to pay for it?" And I said, "I'm not going to pay for it, you're going to pay for it." And he said, "I'm not going to pay for it." And so we came to a bit of a compromise where I would try to go out and get some paying clients, and as long as we met certain milestones, not having to pay for everything, but just a fraction of what the cost was, he thought it was definitely worthwhile to do that. So that's kind of how it got started, and we just kind of learned as we went along.
To that end, we got started. Maybe talk a little bit, your recollection in terms of the partners, because we did, as I recall, we did have benchmarks, but a number of them came out pretty quickly. How did those come about?
So our first partner was We Energies, and they've stayed with us right to the very end of this program, which is fantastic. And really, they helped us to get partners down the line. I can't remember if in the first year we had any new partners that came about because of We Energies, but We Energies was always talking up what we were doing for them, and so that was really helpful down the line getting partners. We actually got that partner because Mike Westendorf actually had a contact in We Energies, and so we didn't have a program, we had nothing. We had to just start talking to people and sort of just coming in cold and trying to present what we wanted to do, not even what we were doing, but what we wanted to do. And so that initial contract was really important for us to be able to kind of land them. And they were willing to try us out, and like a lot of our initial partners, they kind of did us on a trial basis where they kept other providers at the same time, and they wanted to see how well we would work out, and we proved that we could do this job and do it really well, and so they kept us on, and we started adding over the years, and that's how we kind of went forward.
We didn't provide graphics and things like that. What separated us from others when it came to why these partners went with us?
So Innovative Weather was all about the service to partners, and we wanted to make sure that they really understood what the forecast risk was for them. So it was really providing them with assurance about what the risk was, whether it was not much risk or a lot of risk. They needed to know that, because then they were in a position to actually take action to protect themselves against that risk. And for most of them, it was really just an operational cost-saving measure, but it was really quite beneficial. And that's different from a lot of providers who kind of give you an off-the-shelf forecast, and then you're supposed to make it fit into your operation however you can. And many times it's not really configured in a way that really meets the particular risk factors that a specific entity might have. And so this is quite different from what most providers give. And it's a high-level service, which also was kind of an impediment for us financially. We had to sort of cover that over, but it was good for our students at the same time because they really got to understand how to do this kind of thing and do it really well.
You know, when you look at what are universities in general and specifically, but the university's mission, how does innovative weather do that from the academic program standpoint, and then maybe just the overall university standpoint, if you want to tackle it from those two?
So universities would not exist without students, first and foremost. So regardless of what their mission statements say or don't say, that's really what it has to be about. But there's also a financial aspect to it as well. And if you look at some of the really highly successful, well-funded universities, they all have very robust research operations. In fact, in the financial climate that exists today, some of the schools that are failing are the ones that have focused a lot on undergraduate student success, which is really kind of contrary to what the mission statements say. So from our perspective, and from my perspective, again, I always felt that it was really important that this operation be about the students and that they learn from this. It's true experiential learning. And if we were not able to provide that in the context in which we operate, we didn't want to do it. It just didn't make sense for us to do it. So that's kind of how we've always operated. So the university mission statements, you know, they wax and wane, let's say. I think the mission statement back when I started at UWM in 1994 was more or less aligned with that kind of idea. I'm afraid to, sorry to say, not afraid, but sorry to say that it's drifted a bit from that, whatever it says in the actual mission statement. And it's, again, driven by finance. So that's something we've had to contend with for a number of years.
What was the benefit to the atmospheric science program itself? You know, obviously, there's kind of conversations about, you know, there's an undergraduate focus, but there's also what's the impact from a research standpoint, graduate level. In your opinion, how did innovative weather impact our AMO program?
So interestingly, so we have a very small program, we always have, and it's also research intensive. But we also have this idea of a community. Because it is small, we're able to actually have really close-knit student relationships, which goes all the way from freshmen through PhD students. So it's really nice in that way, and it's something that's very attractive to the faculty that are here, that we have that capability. And innovative weather was kind of a linchpin in a lot of that. It really solidified that connectedness. We have an atmospheric science club, and depending on the particular years, sometimes it's very active and very robust. In other years, it's not quite as robust. But innovative weather has always been, you know, a key element that links together the students. I'd say even the students are much more research focused and less operationally focused. That's the case because everybody sort of knows about it and are glad that it's here. So I think it's been really valuable from that standpoint.
The importance of a student having a paid internship versus a volunteer.
So right from the very beginning, we realized that the kind of demographic, student demographic that we have at UWM really put aside any notion of having them just do this for credit. It just didn't make sense. They already have enough credits in their program, and so the last thing they would need would be more credits. Even if they wanted to do this, they might not be able to afford to do it. And so we felt like it was really important that we provide some salary. And quite honestly, we never paid top-of-the-line wages to our students, but we paid enough that they could actually do it. And that was what the key element was. If we were a better funded institution, then perhaps we could have done that through other means, but we just didn't have that option. So it really was quite important that they have salary for it. And also, you know, in a sense, it gives them something that they can tout on their resume also, that I was a paid weather forecaster.
For you, how did innovative weather impact your life? Obviously, you put a lot of yourself into this, especially in the early years.
I think one of the ways that it impacted my career here at UWM was really not at all on the research side of things. I always wanted us to do more on the research side, but we really never had the capacity to be able to do that. So it was mostly about the student success and working with the students. I think, I would have been a more typical faculty member without that, without having that same level of engagement with the students if we didn't have it. So I think that was good for me personally. I also feel like having this program allowed me to interact with administrators at different levels compared to what I would have without it. And so I got to know a lot of people on campus outside of atmospheric science, even outside of letters in science where we were housed for a long time. And so I think that was valuable, just learning a lot more about how things actually work at an institution like this and understanding the people in the various positions, even though they rotate and change over time. It's good to know that. So I think it really did elevate my understanding of the institution.
Do you have when we think about the students that have come through, and I know you've got lots of stories, but is there a student story that you can think of related to innovative weather?
Well, my favorite story is still one of the very first stories. And that was one of our students, Kate Smith, now Kate Fossil. She was one of the very first forecasters, and she was a graduate student, a master's student in our program. And Kate was a fantastic researcher, and she was doing really well. And because of that, actually, after she finished her degree, I actually kept her on for a number of years when I had the funding to keep her as a research scientist on campus. But she was also interested in learning about weather forecasting. And so she was one of the first forecasters in innovative weather. And she later was able to translate that experience into a unique position at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, which is a world-renowned institution. Once my funding for this research position was failing, I told her, well, you're going to have to get a job now, Kate. I don't have any more money. And she said, okay, well, I'll start looking. And so she saw this announcement at NCAR, and she asked me what I thought about it. I said, well, I don't think it really fits what your background is. And she said, I don't care, I'm going to apply anyway. And so she did, and they interviewed her, and they told her that she didn't really fit for the position, not surprisingly, but we really liked the combined research and operational experience you have. We think we have a need for that, and we're going to create a position so that you can do that work for us. So it really paid off handsomely for her, and she is still working for them to this day. She's got a position there, and she's proven her worth over and over again to them. So I think that's a great story.
And then just in general, you think about the many innovative weather stories. Obviously, we think operationally, but were there just another funny story, something that made you laugh, but something from your time thinking about innovative weather, partners, clients, moments? Is there something that jumps out to you as being?
Yeah, well, Mike Westendorf often made me laugh. As all of our operational directors know, you start not knowing everything you need to know about doing that. And it was the same with Mike. He'd never done this before. And it was the same with me. I'd never directed a program like this before, so we were kind of learning together. And so there were times when I knew enough about institutional factors that Mike did not, where he just couldn't see that. And so I'd have to convince him about why it would have to be that way. So it was kind of funny just doing that. But he grew very quickly and really made it his own after just a relatively short while. So it was great. And Alex Bukvich, who succeeded Mike, has gone through the same progression over the last several years. And so it's really fun to see that. So as a director of the program as a whole, it's fun to see people grow into those positions and really be able to make a success out of it.
Is there anything else that you would want to say or add to it? I didn't ask you.
Yeah, it's been great that we've had it. I'm quite sad that we aren't able to continue it beyond this time frame, but we've left, I think, a lasting legacy for the students who've participated in it and for the partners who've worked with us over the years. I think they all understand what we've accomplished here. Even the chancellor knows very well the kinds of things that we've done. And I think under a different environment, we might be continuing, but we can't. So that's the sad part about it, but the good part about it is what we were able to accomplish during the time we were here.